Today's scripture reading is from the book of Malachi, chapter 4, verse 2. But to you who fear my name, the Son of Righteousness shall arise, with healing in his wings, and you shall go out and grow fat like stall-fed calves. May the Lord add an additional blessing to the reading of his word. Amen.
Sometimes it feels like you're getting abandoned when this part happens. Suddenly you know you're alone, but we're never alone. Have a word of prayer. I need it. Dear Jesus, thank you that you loved us. You watch over us. Even when we stray from you, we can't get away from you. And Lord, thank you for that. Help us understand what you're trying to tell us. Help us dig deeper into your message. Amen. So anybody see the title of this? Who can pronounce it? Shemesh, Tzedakah. I was listening on my phone up here. If anybody's seen me like, get a call. No, that was me trying to get it to sound. Reaching for the tassels. Tassels are actually, I was going to put it on there, but it sounds like Jizet. That's Hebrew for tassels. Everybody know what a tassel is? Who graduated? In college or high school or anything, and you had that thing hanging off your hat and had a little danglies, and you took it and you went, ooh, now I'm graduated, by flipping it to the other side, which never understood what that meant. Okay. That's a tassel. Anybody not clear? That's a tassel. Okay. Good. So we're going to have some Hebrew words. I don't want to hurt your heads too hard, but I can help you after in potluck if you. Hebrew word for Malachi means messenger. So Malachi probably wasn't even the guy's name. It was just a message. This is the last book in the Bible in the Old Testament. This was the last message from a prophet to the Jewish people. And it was a tough one. Sometime you have a little time on your hand, read Malachi. Read it all. But we're going to concentrate Malachi 4, called the Great Day of God. For behold, the day is coming, burning like an oven, and all the proud, yes, all who do wickedly will be stubble. And the day that which is coming shall burn them up, says the Lord of the hosts. That will leave them neither root nor branch. But verse 2, which we read, but to you who fear my name, the Son of Righteousness, that's Shemesh, Tzedakah. Yeah. Okay, that's what it means. Son of Righteousness shall arise with healings in his wings, and you shall go out and grow fat like stall-fed calves. I don't know how many of you have ever been to a fair. Anybody going to the fair? My daughter went to the Kent County Fair. It's the shortest, smallest fair I think they have in Maryland. But one of the things they show off are cows. Big, fat cows. These cows lived a good life because they're trying to win a prize for them. They're fed every day. They're kept in their stalls. They're groomed, brushed. Now, have you ever seen a wild thing like a longhorn in movies? You don't have to see a real one. They're out west. They're all skinny. They don't look good. And why they wanted to eat them in the Old West? They shipped them back east and sold them like crazy. But those cows are lean and they don't look so good. I don't think they have a long lifespan. I didn't look that up, but I think a wild cow isn't going to last as long as a cow. Well, we know what happens to cows. But if you didn't eat the cow, the one in the stall would be much happier than the one So all the people that lived on the land back then, they knew what it meant to be a stall-fed calf. It meant you were taken care of. You were fed. You're healthy. Maybe too healthy. Maybe too prosperous. Verse 3, you shall be trampled the wicked, for they shall be ashes under the soles of your feet. On the day I do this, saith the Lord of hosts, remember the law of Moses, my servant, which I commanded him in Horeb for all Israel with the statutes and judgments. Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. And he will turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the hearts of the children to their fathers, lest I come and strike the earth with a curse. That last message from the Lord is pretty tough, right? If you're on the wicked side. But for the other people, it gave them hope. They would hold on to this hope for 300 years. This was the last message. It's like the last chapter of a good book series you're reading, and then it stops, and you're waiting for the author to bring another book, and they don't, and you're waiting, but you keep reading that last book again. Say, what's this mean? What did it mean? It's an interesting term there. Son was Shemesh. Okay. Son, why would say the hero be a son? On this time and age, back then, sun worship was the number one worship of the pagans. Sun worship. It was across many nations. It was very prominent. English teacher, help. Predominant. Or prominent. Okay, we'll go prominent. All right. But the Lord used Shemesh for his people. Why did he do that? Because the Lord comes down to the level he needs to for you to understand what he's saying. These parables that people say, I don't believe in ghosts, but he talked about Lazarus being dead, him being in hell and all that. The Lord goes down to meet us where we can understand him because he wants to be understood. He wants to meet us. He wants to take us with him. I'm going to read the same verse, but it has more Jewish words in it. But unto you that fear my name shall the Shemesh Tzedakah arise with healing in his kanaf. And ye shall go forth and grow up as calves in the stall. Kanaf means garments. But in Hebrew, words have many meanings. In fact, scholars consider them a poor language, meaning they don't have enough words. So they would use words that mean different things. We do that sometimes as well. The jisit, the little tassels, you put them on your kanaf, your gown, your robe, right? In Numbers 15:38 through 41, the ancient Hebrews were commanded by God to place special tassels, jizits, on the corners of the garments. These tassels, the jizits, were the symbol of their commitment to obey the commandments of God set forth in the Torah. What was the Torah? Yeah, it's first 5 books of things. They did contain the 10 Commandments. Speak to the people of Israel, tell them make tassels on the corners of their garments throughout their generations, and put a cord of blue in the tassels in each corner. And in it, your tassels you should look to and remember all the commandments of the Lord to do them and not follow after your own heart or your own eyes, whether you're inclined to whore after. So you shall remember to do all my commandments and be holy to your God. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am the Lord your God. These tassels were very meaningful. So what were they made up of? Can we make one? I was trying to get my daughter to do this. She said, absolutely not. So you don't have a sample. tassel, each one of them had 5 knots in it. I can do 2 knots, good. My shoes. These 5 knots represent the first 5 books of the Bible, the Torah, which was also the law of Moses, some people called it. There were 5 spaces between the knots. The 5 spaces represented the name of God. So it's the letter YHWH, because we call it Yahweh, but they wouldn't pronounce the name of God because of the commandment that says don't take the name of the Lord in vain. Strict Jewish people never say Yahweh. They don't know. Orthodox. Then the value of tzitzit, the thing, say it again. Tzitzit. Okay. Tzitzit. Thank you. Is 600. I don't know how they get that, but that's 600. If you combine this value with the 5 knots, made from 8 threads of the tzitzit, you come with the number 613. And it's 613 in Hebrew represents the number of commandments that the Jewish people were supposed to keep. 613. And we struggle with 10. But they had 613 commandments or things they were supposed to do. In fact, number 84 of those commandments said to have fringes on the corner of your garments. So they kind of went circle. Number 25 said, let the fringes of the clothes remind you to have a pure conduct. That's in Numbers 15, 39 and 38. So they wore these outfits, men, and they had tassels on them, and that was to make them remember the commandments. Now, if we had to do that, think of us having 10 tassels. That'd be cool. The commandments are the most important thing to the Hebrew nation. 613 of them. It was to be put on the kanaf. What was that? The kanaf has several meanings in the book of the Bible. One of them is dawn. Dawn. Imagine that. One is a corner, a skirt, or a loose end of a garment. Wing, like the wing of an animal or a being. The other one deeper is protector of his people. Kanaf. If you imagine a big robe kind of reaching out, looks like dawn, looks like wings. All this from this one word. In Job 37 and Job 37:3 and Job 38:13, he uses the word to mean the end of the earth, the ends, all the edges of the earth. Now we have a word that says it covers everything. It's the dawn. Let's go back to that verse we just read, and it said, but unto your fear my name, Shemesh it's silent, Tzedakah. Okay. Arise from the being with his kanaf, or his wings, and you shall go forth and grow up. This becomes a promise to him in a way. Think about it. Somebody's coming, the Son of Righteousness, and he's going to have a garment that covers the earth. This was a pretty interesting thing, right? All the people knew this promise because it came down. Let's go back, way back to David. Maybe David, let's put Saul in there. Saul was the king. David was the better rock thrower. Saul had married the daughter, and then he started getting jealous because they said, oh, Saul killed 1,000. That's pretty good. That verse. The next verse was, David killed 10,000. That in a rock song today, right? I killed 1,000, but he killed 10,000. Okay. Saul got mad. He started getting jealous. And he plotted to kill his own son-in-law. And David got wind of that, thanks to his brother-in-law, Jonathan. And he took off. And he hid. And he started gathering up thugs, for a better word, and built his own little mini army. and they were the mighty men in the Bible. They did great things. They fought battles. But Saul went out looking for him. And he took 3,000 men and he searched for David because he heard he was at a place. And I have it written down. Tab lady. Too far. This is when you don't have a computer. You use paper. 1 Samuel 24, 1 through 15. Now it happened that when Saul returned from following the Philistines, it was told to him, take note, David is in the wilderness of En-Gedi. Anybody been to En-Gedi? Okay. Then Saul took 3,000 chosen men with Israel and went to seek David and his men, the rocks of the wild goats. So he came to the sheepfolds at the road, and there was a cave, and Saul went in to attend his needs. He went in to use the toilet, and he didn't want everybody to see him, so he went into a cave to go to the toilet. Number 2, you need to know. But what he didn't know was David and the mighty men were hiding in that cave, way in the back, in the dark part. And then here comes the king. Now they're hiding from all these 3,000, and the king comes in, and he goes over to a rock and sits, or squats, or I don't know what he does. He lifts up his thing to do his business. And his men say, look, the Lord has delivered the king into your hand. Whack his head off. He didn't say that verbatim, but his men said, look, he's given in to you. You can kill the king right now. No more chasing, no more thing. And David doesn't do it. David says, no, God chose him. He's been ruling for 15 years. I'm not going to do that. But he does go over and does something else. Now, this is a little nasty in one way. Because he's doing his business. And he sneaks up and he cuts off a corner of his garment. His tapa. Cuts off a part. And then he keeps it. And then Saul finishes business, goes out, is walking away, and he waits till he gets a little ways, and he comes popping up, and he yells to his, my king, my lord the king. And Saul looks up behind him, surprise. David stooped with the face to the earth. That means he bowed down. David said, why do you listen to the words of man say? Indeed, David seeks your harm. Look, this day your eyes have seen that the Lord delivered you today into my hands in the cave. And someone urged me to kill you. Didn't point out which one. But my eye spared you, and I said, I will not stretch out my hand against my Lord, for he is the Lord's anointed. Moreover, my father see, and this is the creepy part, the corner of your robe is in my hand. Now, if you're the king, first you're thinking, wait, you cut my robe off. And then you think, ooh, when did he do that? That's a pretty vulnerable position to be. And somebody snips up. I mean, if you're doing a gag, don't do this one. Ever. And did not kill you. Note and see that there is neither evil nor rebellion in my hand, and I have not sinned against you. Yet you hunt my life and to take it. Let the Lord judge between you and me, and let the Lord avenge me on you. But my hand shall not be against you. What's the significance of this? David was anointed the future king. Saul did. Remember Samuel came? You're going to be the king. But he holds up. What's on that robe? A sisset. Jisset. Say it. GC. A tassel. What was he representing? He said the law is not with you. His message to Saul is, you've gone against God's law. I'm not going to kill you, but God's going to avenge this. He's basically telling Saul, you're not part of God's plan anymore. Now, it didn't sound like that because we all just heard this dialogue, and if you read it, but when he holds up the tassel, he's saying you're not part of the plan anymore. When he did this, he was honoring God's command, right? God had anointed him. But he was showing Saul that you've gone away from him. And we know how far Saul goes, even to the point of going and seeing the witches that he had wiped out to see Samuel's ghost. He really deviated from the Lord. He tried to do a sacrifice on his own. He basically went away and did his own thing. After that, he was killed. Saul got killed in a battle. And David ascends the throne. And there's a little turmoil with that. But pretty much, he brings it all together. But if we remember, his son, well, first Solomon started messing up. He started out well, then he went on his own. And then his grandson comes along, and he gets that advice like, your dad was tough, you've got to be tougher. He taxed you 10 times, I'll tax you 100 times. And the Lord had sent a prophet to meet a man walking to meet the king. He said, give me your new garment, your robe. And what did he do? He ripped it into 12 pieces. Now, somebody asked to borrow my new coat. I'm not going to be happy if he tears it into 12 pieces. Any piece. I don't think I'm going to grab my seam. Tears it into 12 pieces, and he gives 10 to him. Now, on those pieces are what? Those same jissits. So he just divided up. He just broke it apart and just said, God's not covering your country anymore in a way. Now it's going to be broken to pieces. And we know that the 10 pieces represented 10 tribes. And the 2 were 2 tribes of state, Judah and Benjamin, right? Okay. So he's telling it broke apart. Soon after that, Babylonian captivity would happen. They did a bunch of bad kings, making bad decisions. Some made good decisions. But it gets down to a point that the kingdom's broken apart and taken. And they're taken into captivity. During that captivity, they have a lot of time to read. And some of them start turning back to the Lord and reading all these prophets. They come to Malachi and they say, oh, look, there's this promise there. And the promise is what? If you follow the Lord, it's going to help you be a well-fed calf. It's going to take care of you. And they all knew this promise. Well, people came along like the Romans. They conquered their area. And then, oh, I left out some. I'm sorry. Let's get to this. In those laws, as they study those 613 laws or commandments, there's 108 of them that talk about being tamei. Okay, T-A-M-E-I. Tamei means to be impure or unclean. So they had 108 laws on being impure or unclean or what to do in that situation. Numbers 19:22 says, whatever the unclean person touches shall be unclean, and the person who touches it shall be unclean until evening. So they had all these rules, and they start studying them while they're in Babylon, and they start realizing, oh, we went away from the Lord, and some of them start wearing the boxes on their heads and on their arms with the laws in it, and they become a better person, very religious, almost super strict religious. And then they get out of captivity and go back. Look, the Lord taking care of us with those wings. And they get back, and then things don't go well, and soon they're under captivity of other nations again. And in the middle of this turmoil shows up a teacher. And he's unlike all other teachers. And we have a person that hits Leviticus 15:19 through 23. This says, sorry for anybody that's offended. Okay, good. If a woman has a discharge from her body, and it is blood, she shall be set apart for 7 days. And whoever touches her shall be unclean until evening. Ruined your day. Everything that she lies on during her impurity shall be unclean. Also, everything she sits on shall be unclean. Whoever touches the bed shall wash his clothes and bathe in water and be unclean till evening. And whoever touches anything she sat on shall wash his clothes and bathe in water and be unclean until evening. And anything on her bed or anything which he sits and he touches, he shall be unclean until evening. So we're talking about menses here. The guys that don't want that, the period, that monthly thing that makes all of us suffer. Okay. But there was all these rules. 7 days, unclean. If you touch anything, you're unclean. And they had a special water, and they had a whole ceremony where they burnt this thing to make this special water that you washed with. Okay. But it really messed up your day, because you had to go away from all the people until sunset if you're the man. The woman's 7 days away from everybody. Quite fair, but that's just how the rules work. Some of the other rules were, if you were in the temple and you suddenly became unclean, you were kicked out. Now, women weren't allowed inside the temple, but this meant the men. So that one guy got leprosy one time, showed up on his arms, you're out. Impure persons shall not enter the temple. Unclean persons shall not enter the Temple Mount area. This is women. So you had the inside the church. So in the good old days, ladies, you wouldn't be in here. Sorry. You'd be right out there in the foyer. Nobody's out there now. Good. And you would be outside listening through the windows. And guess that non-Adventists would be with you. The Gentiles. And you'd all be around the thing, the Temple Mount, listening. Well, you had to listen well. But this is 328, and their thing said, unclean people aren't allowed on that Temple Mount. So you're isolated from church now. Okay. Deuteronomy 23:11, unclean priests cannot go do temple service. 396, if they touch your food becomes impure. If they touch the sacrifice, that becomes impure. Basically, anything you touch or handle suddenly is impure. 7 days. Man, how hard was that for women back then? I mean, we think it's tough when we have to race down to Walgreens and get something, and where the guy have to go get it. Go in there and get me that. Okay. No, 7 days, you had to stay away from everybody. I imagine there's this like club of women out there. Hey, yeah, you on 7, 3. Okay. It was tough. Even in Job, it says, who can bring what is pure from impure? No one. And then we have the story we study, Mark 5:24 through 34. So Jesus went with him. That was Jairus. Remember, his daughter was dying. He was 12 years old also. A great multitude followed him and thronged him. Means they pushed in on him. I've been at concerts. I've been at things. I went to the Indianapolis 500, and they let out 1 million people to catch buses 10 at a time. It was packed. It was incredibly, and then people wouldn't get out of the way of the buses, so the next 10 couldn't come up. Then they went down, tried to load into the 10. The drivers told not to open the door until first 10 leave. So they start shoving the doors, and then the next groups went down to the next 10. Pretty soon, just had this big chaotic mess. It was horrible. I was with my roommate. He got pushed up on the bus, and I could not get on the bus with him. It pinched in, and I got on a bus 10 minutes later, 30 minutes, 20, sometime later, and my bus went up, and all the buses turned left, and this bus guy decided, nope, he turned right and went around the whole city of Indianapolis. And I got there, and I see my roommate and his family, and I said, oh, sorry, so late, 30, 40 minutes. He goes, no, we just got here. So the long way got me there just as fast as the right way. But it was a mess, all the people pressing in. And I thought anything could go wrong at this minute. Nothing really did, other than the bus is not loaded. It was very uncomfortable, with nice words. So this throng is pushing in on the Lord. Now a certain woman who had a flow of blood for 12 years. That means for 12 years, she had to stay away from everybody. 7 days, no, 12 years. 50 weeks in a year. 7 times that, 350. That's weeks. 12 years. She had suffered many things from many physicians. And I know our doctors aren't so great today. I can't imagine what a doctor 2,000 years ago would have prescribed to somebody with a condition like that, the things they would have tried to do. She said she suffered through many things. She spent all that she had. I mean, she was bankrupt. She was probably homeless because 12 years, who's going to keep her around? Touching everything. And was no better, but rather grew worse. 12 years of hemorrhaging blood? Yeah, I would say not going to be very healthy. When she heard about Jesus, she came behind him in the crowd and touched his garment. For she said, if only I may touch his clothes, I shall be made well. Immediately the fountain of her blood was dried up. She felt her body that she'd healed the suffering. And Jesus, immediately knowing in himself that power had gone out of him, turned around in the crowd and said, who touched my clothes? But his disciples said to him, you see, there's a multitude thronging around us. And you say, who touched me? They were incredulous. They didn't understand this whole thing. And he looked around until he seen her. But the woman, fearing and trembling, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell down before him and told him the whole truth. She told of the 12 years, of all the stuff she'd probably gone through, the isolation. And he said to her, daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your affliction. And then he goes to heal Jairus' dead daughter. Luke has about the same story. He has more with Peter saying, who touched you? But what was her belief? Why did she think, if only I touch his robe? Because she was going back to Malachi. She looked and said, he is the Son of Righteousness. I'm sure she heard about his blind people being sight and all this, but she went back to Malachi and she said, he's the one. The Son of Righteousness is not a prophet or a man, is it? The Son of Righteousness is God. She said, I'm betting everything he's God. Matthew 9, 20, 22. It's a very short version of the same story. I know Matthew, maybe he was just a little autistic or something. He just didn't want to write it all. Who knows? But I'm going to reread it a different way to you. A woman who had had a hemorrhage, it means tamah, she's been unclean, ostracized, shunned, isolated, separated, bankrupt, homeless for 12 years. Approach him from behind and touch sees it on his robe, his tanah. For she said to herself, if only I can touch his tanah, or his corner, or his wings, I will be healed. Joshua turned and said to her, courage, daughter, your trust has healed you. For she was instantly healed. She was looking for everything to happen here. What would happen if she wasn't healed? She just made this teacher or prophet unclean for a day. He couldn't have gone to Jairus' house. He would have had to go isolate himself until evening. She would have probably been ridiculed. She might even, depending on the crowd, been stoned for knowing she was unclean and touching somebody. It's like a leopard coming forward. In those days, if leopards tried to touch people, they stoned them to death. They didn't follow the thing, stay away, unclean, leper. They were killed. They weren't going to let them come into the cities. She looked and she said, I believe he is God. I believe if I can touch just the tassel of his thing, all the laws, the commandments, the promises, I touch that, I will be healed. Because Malachi said that in his thing. He said, by his wings we will be healed. She reached and did it. God didn't turn to her and say, if you have faith, like he did somebody, you'll be healed. In fact, he wasn't facing her. But her belief was so much, it said it pulled the power from him. She called on his promises, and he had no other choice but to follow it. That's how strong her faith was. Many other people said, your faith has healed you. I like that in the verse with Luke, he said, daughter, be of good cheer. Your faith has made you well. And then ends, go in peace. And he stopped the whole crowd to do this. Why did he do this? We discussed in the Sabbath school, this was so he could strengthen Jairus, who was there, who had very little faith, but was betting everything on the last chance he had. But after that, they would come to Jairus and say, your daughter's dead. Stop bothering the teacher. And he's, the old Jairus, I said 10 minutes before this incident, would probably be, okay, sorry, Lord, you didn't make it. But the new Jairus, when the Lord said, don't listen to them, come with me anyway, he listened to Jesus. His faith is just this 12-year afflicted woman, it just strengthened him. And they go and raise his daughter from the dead. Just imagine her life. 12 years she's been separated from family, from everybody. What do you think she's going to tell them now? Who healed me? God healed me. God is Jesus. Flipping it too early. Sorry. Is there anything that we have? Afflictions? Some of our afflictions are over 12 years old. Some of us been battling some sins more than that. Some have brand new ones. Sorry, young people. Do we believe in these same promises? I'm going to tell you. If you believe, he has no other choice but then help you. It's your faith. We've been promised a lot of things, but I think sometimes we think the Lord is in the Old Testament. He did all that stuff 2,000 years ago, but it doesn't affect us now. He did all these things way back. He helped them people, but he's just in this book. He's back. This is old. Well, this isn't, but 2,000 years ago, he helped this lady. He can't help me now. I got like mortgages and stuff. Lord can't deal with a mortgage. Kids traveling to Wyoming. Lord, do there. If you don't have the faith, you're not going to get your answer. The same Lord of then is this Lord we have now. Same God, same person, maker of the universe. He's just asking you, stand on my promises, believe in it, reach out and grab the tassel. Reach out and grab the promises. He has a robe that covers the world, all the corners. He's the sunrise. He's the sun. He's the protector. Everything that he says in that verse, by being the wings, Christ is all of that. Again, Malachi 4:2. But to you who fear my name, the Son of Righteousness shall rise with healing in his wing, and you shall go out and grow fat like stall-fed calves. We're going to be fat in heaven. I think that's what it means. Maybe not so fat. But we will be well fed. Promise he's going to take care of us is still there. I listen to the prayer things. All of us are going through stuff. If we're not, we will be, or we know somebody that will be. I'm going to ask you, reach out to touch the tassel. You believe the Lord can help you, raise your hand and say, Jesus, I need to grab that. Do that. We're going to have a closing hymn. I had it memorized, but now I don't. It's standing on the promises, but what's the number? 518? Thank you, Esther. If we all stand, 518, is that correct?